All right, y'all. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. I want to give all praise, glory, and honor to the Most High God, His brother Yeshaya from the Hopeful Elect. Just coming at you with another Sabbath day kind of discussion. I'm not going to say lesson or breakdown or, class. It's really a discussion, right? So the topic of this lesson is, anyone but us. And it's not going to be too long, but I just had a thought, man, when I was watching the debate with Chief Priest Alizar this past week, man, and really just interesting how the debate was with the atheist, but I was referencing to the last debate that he had with Dr. Michael Brown. I want to say that was his name, and it was just kind of like how there's always a debate about who the real Jews are. A debate about if who we believe in inside of the book ever existed, right? And 9 times out of 10, these conversations are only had with our people, because anybody could be the best nation on earth, but our people. Anybody could be the most successful people on earth, but our people. Anybody could be the set apart people, but our people. And it's kind of sad when you get to the reality of things that, hey, that's how it was prophesied, right? But let me go into some scriptures real quick, man. Let me go into some scriptures for my understanding. So this is the book of Deuteronomy. I'm not sharing my screen right now, but I promise to you, I will share my screen in a brief second. So just let me click on this real quick. Right? Share screen, Deuteronomy 7 and 6. Let's start with it. So this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7 and verse 6, right? And it says, "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God had chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth." Now, there's no question that the Most High God had a chosen people, but the debate is often who are the Most High God chosen people, right? Because we have a lot of scriptures like, let me go to the book of Revelation, chapter 2 and verse number 9. Revelation 2 and 9, and it says, "Listen, I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." Right? So Most High God has a chosen people, but he said also later on in the book of Revelation that there's blasphemy of them who are claiming themselves to be the Most High God's chosen people. And I want to say that when this topic comes about, man, it's always anybody but our people, the so-called Black American man, women and child, the so-called Hispanic man, woman, and child, right? We know that, I guess there's a lot of history and things of that nature that goes into that conversation. And I'm not going to dive deep into that. I'm not going to dive into it at all, to be honest, because I want to focus on the thing exactly how the Most High God said to identify these people, right? The book that we reading from, right? Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse number 1. Deuteronomy chapter 28, Salakia 18, 28, verse number 1. It reads, and it says, "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth." So like not all the nations, but above all nations of the earth. So we read Deuteronomy 7 and 6 to establish that the Most High God has a chosen people. But then we went to Revelation 2 and 9 to show that, hey, in these times, there's blasphemy of them, of a certain people group calling themselves to be the people that the God has chosen, right? But they're really not, and it's a blasphemy. And now we're going back to Deuteronomy 28 to focus on, how do we really identify these people, man? So Deuteronomy 28 and 1 again, "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth." Meaning that if these people obey the voice of the Lord, they do his commandments, He's going to put them on high above all nations of the earth, right? Let me read verse 2. It says, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Meaning, the only time these blessings are going to come on us is if we hearken into the voice of the Lord, which means to hear. So if we hear the voice of the Lord, we obey his voice, hey, we'll get these blessings. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Meaning that if we don't listen to the voice of the Lord, we will be cursed, right? Now, when you go throughout the Bible, I mean, there's, for those who read and study it, and even for those who haven't, it's just to make it plain, you know, the Israelites didn't hearken. They were sent into multiple different captivities. They had all these curses put upon them, and they were scattered abroad across the world, right? And we can substantiate that by going to James 1. And when James is writing his epistle, he's saying, hey, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. But ultimately, the Israelites were scattered, right? And that's one of the curses that we'll read later on. But let's start at verse 15. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field, right? Matter of fact, let me take a different approach, because I don't want to go curse by curse to break down. I want to go to verse 45 and 46, right? Remember, going back to verse 15, it says, if we don't hear the voice of the Lord, if we don't obey his commandments, we're going to be cursed. And like I mentioned, if you go throughout the history of the Bible and throughout history, right, you can just see that the Israelites were cursed. They didn't obey the voice of the Lord. Verse 45, it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed. Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, right? So let's take a break real quick. We got to remember that anytime people try to argue like you aren't the people of the book, your people aren't the people of the book, and I'm speaking specifically, you know, our people, so-called Black Hispanics, right? We know that we're the people of the book through exactly what the Most High said was going to serve as a sign and a wonder, these curses, right? It says, and they is these curses, right? Shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, meaning everlasting, perpetual, right? I've heard some people say, oh, it only means for this age. Well, this age means everlasting. I want to prove that. Let me share, let me go to a blue letter, BLU letter. And I got my camera off because I feel as if when I'm on camera, my computer starts lagging and stuff, and you all won't be able to, I guess, understand what I'm saying in real time. It'll be lagging. It's going to vex me. So let me go to DEUT, Deuteronomy 28:68. I mean, excuse me, Salakia 46. 28:46. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 46. Let's go to this tab. So now I'm sharing this tab to go to the blue letter, right? We're going to go into the Hebrew. For a sign and wonder, and upon thy seed forever, right? So the word ever, when it says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, right? Look at the word that's mentioned here, olam. Olam is the word that's mentioned. It's Strong's H5769, right? Hebrew word, olam.
Strong's H5769. Olam. Olam.
Right. And I'm trying to, I guess let me click on this, right? Olam, right? It's mentioned as ever 272 times in the KJV and everlasting 63 times. So it gives you how many times it's used, right? In the KJV. When you go down and read the outline of biblical usage. So this is how it's used in the Bible. And remember, etymology supersedes context, right? But a lot of times the context of something will give you the understanding of how this word is being used, right? I mean, so like I think I said that backwards. Etymology does not supersede context. So what I'm saying is that, let me just say it this way, like I just mentioned. Anytime you're reading something, when you see the outline of biblical usage, like if a word has more than one definition, all you got to do is read the context to see how it's being applied, because it has multiple different applications to it. So all you have to do is read the context and you'll see how the word is applied in that specific scripture. But when we're reading Deuteronomy 28:46, and it says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, that means everlasting, right? It says long duration, antiquity, futurity, forever, ever, everlasting, evermore, perpetual, old, ancient, world, ancient time, long time, of past, of future, forever, always, continuous existence, perpetual, everlasting, indefinite or unending future, eternity, right? So in this context, what do you think it is? It's all of these things: long duration, antiquity, futurity, right? Forever, everlasting. These curses were set to be upon the children of Israel forever. And there's no denying that. So we got to remember that when it comes to arguing with people about who the children of Israel are, we have to, again, I think when brothers was on a lesson a few months ago, we was talking about like the word is enough. We have to stop letting people use worldly logic to take us away from the scriptures, right? Because without the Bible, not even without the Bible, right? Because the manuscripts were there, the ancient texts that that Moses was writing on, these scribes and priests were writing on, you know, they were there before what we know today as the Bible, right? The Bible wasn't formulated till hundreds, even thousands of years later. But we have to stop letting people take us away from the Bible to prove our point, because now that's playing into their hand. It's nothing wrong with sticking solely with the scriptures, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you proving your point with the Bible. Why? Because literally there would be, I'm not going to say there would be no, but I'm going to say that literally how you learn about who the Jews are, their lineage, their heritage, comes straight out of this book, the Torah, right? The Tanakh. However, even when you go to the Jewish Talmud, right, they get all of their information from the Torah, the Tanakh, and then they put their little man-made twist on it. But we have to stop, again, letting people try to confuse us and take us away from the word to be able to prove our point. Because at the end of the day, this word is one of the ways, is the main way, not one of the ways. This word is the main way that we prove who the real children of Israel are. Because when you go back to the Bible right here in Deuteronomy 28:46, well, let me read 45 first. It says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenedest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Meaning, a sign and wonder. These commandments are going to serve as a sign. I mean, not commandments, Salakia, but these curses are going to serve as a sign and a wonder to show you who God's chosen people are. Now, that's why I said we got to remember that anybody but us. But see, anytime we have that discussion, one-on-one, verbatim, going back and forth, it's always about DNA. It's always about haplogroup. It's always about 1948. It's always about the Zionist movement. All these different man-made things, right? Again, the Bible serves as our sole foundation of what we believe. If not, then what should it be? Because if your faith is based on things outside of the scriptures, then you're making man your strength, right? Not saying that you cannot go outside the Bible to prove the Bible. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that you have to understand how to be, I guess, smart when you're having certain conversations. And one thing people who want to be able to confound you would like for you to do is to stop speaking straight from the source, and they want you to kind of wing it. Do your own thing. Say your own words, right? They want you to kind of go off what you think to be true outside of the scriptures, or what history research you've done outside of the scriptures. And they're going to say that the history and research you've done outside of the scriptures isn't true because you use this, this, and this. We've seen it in debates, right? We've seen it in debates. We've seen it in conversations. I'm convinced now that the brother Gorilla Hebrew, being that he's debated 2 doctors, PhD, I'm convinced I don't even want one no more, because the least intelligent people during those debates sounded like people who had PhD behind their name. Because it was just, oh, I'm right because I say it and because I have a doctorate, right? We're not even using the Bible to serve as a basis no more. Now we're trying to conform to their argument. And when I was in a room on Clubhouse the other day, and they was kind of saying the same thing, like they was arguing about who the real Jews were. And one of the main things that I heard people arguing against that, who the real Jews are, when we claim ourselves to be the real Jews, they were saying we weren't. And one of the main things that they were doing is dropping all, I ain't even gonna say dropping all, because they weren't really dropping much, but they were using articles and everything outside of what the Bible says that will serve as a sign to prove that we aren't the Jews. And it doesn't make sense to me, right? Especially when you read stuff like this. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 54, right? It says, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother and toward the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall lead, right? And it's crazy to me because it's just like, when I read this, it lines up so much with statistics today, right? It lines up so much with statistics today. Let me Google something. Which ethnicity leads? I mean, we talk about this so much, and I love talking about it because it always serves as a reminder to stick with the scriptures, man. What ethnicity leads in single parent household, right? Let me go to aecf.org, right? I'm gonna use .org. Some people have a problem with using Wikipedia. I don't, because Wikipedia is just like Amazon, but for websites. They take the websites that you use and they just put it on their website and they use it as a source. So Amazon is not a faulty website, but to each its own. You know, I'm gonna share this screen. I'm gonna share this tab. It says statistics about children in single parent families, right? Let's read this. In the United States today, nearly 24 million children live in a single parent family. This total, which has been rising for half a century, covers about 1 in every 3 kids across America. 33% of children are going to grow up in a single family household. And it says a number of long-term demographic trends have fueled this increase, including marrying later, declining marriage rates, increasing divorce rates, and an uptick in babies born to single mothers, right? All of these are curses that the Most High will put on our people, man. Hey, forbidding to marry, commanding to abstain from meats, just like Paul was talking about. It says increasing divorce rates and an uptick in babies born to single mothers. Hey, listen, increasing divorce rates, right? So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother and toward the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall lead, right? It says within single parent families, most children, 14.5 million, live in mother-only households. So that means 24 million, nearly 24 million children grow up in single family households. 14.5, way more than half of those children come in mother-only households. More than 6 million children live with cohabitating parents, and 3.5. So 3.5 million kids live in father-only households, according to 2021 estimates. Now, this is just 2 years ago, right? So I don't think the numbers would be that far off. But 3.5 million children live in father-only households. 14.5 million children live in mother-only households. And the rest is kind of split between like cohabitating parents. Among unmarried parents, the share of single mothers has shrunk in recent decades, while the share of cohabitating parents has grown. So that's a good thing, right? But let's go to statistics by race, ethnicity, and family nativity. The likelihood of a child living in a single-parent family varies by race, ethnicity, and family nativity. Data from 2021 indicates that, and it's going to explain what it indicates. Let's read this first bullet. Black and American Indian or Alaska Native children are more likely to live in a single-parent family. Oh, Salakia. It says are most likely to live in a single-parent family. Well, that doesn't make sense, but let's keep reading. 64% of Black children and 49% of American Indian or Alaskan Native children fit this demographic, right? So 64% of so-called African American or Black children come from single-parent households. Of that 64% of, I guess, children, let me see. Let me do some math real quick. Let me just stop trying to wing it. Let me do some math real quick. So you got 24 million. Let's just say 24 million. That's 240 million. Let's times that by 0.64, right? That means of that 24 million, African Americans make up 1 million. Oh, no, wait, hold on. Let's go back because my math is wrong. I don't know if y'all can see this calculator, but let's see, 24 million times 0.64 is equal. So that means African American children make up 15,360,000 of single parent households, right? 15 million. Think about it. There's nearly 24 million. So that means there's 9 million left to split between multiple demographics, right? That's insane. Insanity. And when we go back to the word where it talks about so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother and toward the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. I just don't see that. You know, I just don't see how them curses could apply to another people group other than our people, right? Some people, and again, the reason that we went to this tab right here is to show you that when that was prophesied, when Deuteronomy 28 and 54 was prophesied, it wasn't just talking about for that period of time. That's why we went to the Hebrew to show this word means long duration, antiquity, futurity, forever, everlasting, evermore, perpetual. Because some people like to say, oh, well, that was prophesied back then. That was for that during that time. Or when they first started going in captivity after they was in the land, right? Well, this says forever, and it means everlasting. Guess where else this word is used, right? Let's go to Genesis 9:12. Genesis chapter 9 and verse 12, right? It says, and God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. Remember, this covenant is going to be for perpetual generations, right? Perpetual. It says this is the perpetual generation, or this is the perpetual covenant for, let me rephrase that. This is the covenant that he's going to put in the clouds for perpetual generations. It says, I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. So what we refer to as the rainbow, the Most High said this is going to be for perpetual generations, right? So we'll see the rainbow for perpetual generations. What is the word found there in the Hebrew? Let me see. Between me and you for perpetual. Oh, what does it happen to be? Strong's H5769, Olam, which means long duration, antiquity, futurity, forever, ever, everlasting, evermore, perpetual, old, ancient world. So again, when you see every time after rain, you saw a rainbow in the cloud, that is literally showing you that that meant forever. That's an everlasting covenant that the Father made. The same way he told us that the curses would be upon us everlasting. I just don't see, like, when you grow up around, let's say, the Jewish people, right? I just don't see how the curses apply. I just don't see it. I see strong households, right? I'm not even going to say strong. I'm going to just say I see two-parent households through and through. And I'm not going to say that's emphatically true. One thing I will never do is say that because the curses don't apply to somebody else, that means that somebody else isn't dealing with single parent. Like, let's not be naive. Let's be realistic, right? When we say that these curses apply to our people, we're talking about by and large. We know that there's white children that grow up in single parent households. We know that there's Asian children that grow up in single parent households. We know that divorce is common amongst every ethnicity on the face of the earth. That's just something that, hey, just being realistic with the thing. But however, we're talking about by and large, this is what was going to happen to God's chosen people. And by and large, when you're telling me that one race or ethnicity in this country makes up 64% of single family households, that's absurd. That's not a coincidence. That sounds like a curse to me that the Most High said will be upon us forever, right? That's what that sounds like to me. But let's keep going. And it says, let me see. Let me get out of this one. Let me go to verse number, let me go to verse number, well, let me start. Let me go to verse number 62. I think that 62 is what I'm looking for, right? Matter of fact, 61. That's what I'm looking for. Let me start at 59, actually. So it's verse number 59. It says, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance in sore sickness. Matter of fact, Salaki, I wasn't sharing it. So let me, Deuteronomy 28:59, it says, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance in sore sickness and of long continuance, right? Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou was afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. This is one of the curses, right? It says also every sickness and every plague, watch this, which is not written in the book of this law, then will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed, right? So the Most High is going to plague us with the sicknesses that were in Egypt that we were scared of, and sicknesses and diseases that weren't written in the book of the law, right? When you think about it like this, let me see. What ethnicity leads in, let me just say in sickness. Look at this. And you can't make this up. Like, what I'm saying is you can't make this stuff up, man. Share this tab instead, right? So when you Google what ethnicity leads in sickness, right here, African Americans had the highest death rates of all racial/ethnic groups included in this section from each of the following leading causes: heart disease, cancer, stroke, unintentional injury, and diabetes, right? So, and this is cchealth.org. These are approved websites that I'm not making up and looking for my own approval, right? And this is going back to, it says, between 2005 and 2007, the greatest number of deaths in this country was among whites, 15,042, which I expect that, because when you look at it, white people, statistically, according to the U.S. Census, outnumbers black people by almost 200 million. So that's expected, right? It says, followed by African Americans, 2,225, and Hispanics, 1,640, and Asian/Pacific Islanders with 1,406, right? It says all-cause mortality by race, ethnicity, right? And this is back in 2005 to 2007. It says African American, 10%, we have a 1,000.2. Let me see. It says we have a 1,002.7. I guess this is mortality rate. It says significantly higher rate than the county overall, significantly lower rate than the country. I guess it meant to say country overall, right? But ultimately, we have a higher mortality rate, right? Of 100% of the population, African Americans that died only made up 10% of all deaths in between 2005 and 2007. Salakia. So let me be clear when I'm reading. It says African American deaths between 2005 and 2007 accounted for 10% of total deaths between that time period. Yet, look at our mortality rate, 1,002.7, right? It says the 4 racial ethnic groups presented in this section had 7 of 10 leading causes of death in common: cancer, heart disease, stroke, unintentional injury, diabetes, the flu, and chronic lower respiratory disease. Heart disease, cancer, and stroke were the top 3 leading causes of death for whites, African Americans, and Asian Pacific Islanders. The top 3 causes of death for Hispanics were cancer, heart disease, and unintentional injury. Other leading causes of death varied by race, ethnicity, including essential hypertension, hypertensive renal disease for African Americans, Asians, Pacific Islanders, and whites, Alzheimer's disease for Hispanic and whites, chronic liver disease and cirrhosis for Asian Pacific Islanders and Hispanics, homicide for African Americans and Hispanics, suicide for Asian Pacific Islanders and whites, and guess what? It rounds off with saying, and HIV for African Americans. Remember, the sicknesses that weren't mentioned in the law, the sicknesses that were in Egypt would also be put upon us as well, right? And we already know the statistics about HIV. This is why on the street corners, people call it Hebrew Israelite camp doctrine, but that's not camp doctrine. That's statistics. Because when we say Amos 3:2, when the Lord says, you only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities, right? The Lord is basically saying, being that we're his chosen people, you're going to get your butt beat the worst because I told you not to do it. I don't care about what Rebecca did. Rebecca's not my child. You are my child. You are my chosen people, right? That's Sirach 17:17, Deuteronomy 32:8. I mean, what is that? 1 Samuel or 2 Samuel 12:24, something like that. But I mean, it just doesn't, like we mentioned, it just doesn't make sense, man. When you see these things, right? When you go back, let me get out the document. When you go back and you just say, hey, what ethnicity leads in sickness? African Americans had the highest death rates of all racial ethnic groups in this section from each of the following leading causes: heart disease, cancer, stroke, unintentional injury, and diabetes, right? It just goes to show you that, again, the Most High said, also, every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed, right? I'm just saying, like, when you go through these curses, man, and you read them and you breaking them down and you just kind of going through them, you kind of don't see how they just fit other nations of people. That's not a bad thing to say. When you're looking at statistically, and we're being, according to the U.S. Census, right? And we don't even know if those numbers are true. I'm just going to say they are for the sake of argument, right? Not because I want to agree with the government, but because I'm more so just taking an educational standpoint from it. If there are nearly 300, or if there are nearly 200 million, 215 million, or I think it was like 198 million white people in America. There's 198 million white people, right? Let me not assume. 2020 U.S. Census population. Let me see. Let me go back. Census.gov is loading. So Salakia, let me share this tab. Because what I'm looking for is to show the number of people in this country by demographic. right? If we can just load for a second. Dang, can I get the website to pull up? I'm gonna just say that I thought I had it written down somewhere. I did have it written down, but it's in my old notebook that I'd have to go get on my book bag. Let's see. It says the 2020 U.S. Census. Yeah, I understand about, you know what I'm saying, resident population and stuff, but I'm gonna look up population by ethnicity. And this is not showing it. About race. Yeah, let me go by race. So let's see this. The U.S. Damn, this is according to 20. Oh, okay, this is the 2020. So the U.S. is 57.8% white, 18.7% Hispanic, 12.4% Black, right? So there's, according to the U.S. Census, only 12.4% of African American people that live in this country. And when you're going to, you know what I'm saying, look at the numbers, right? Look at all these statistics and see how we're literally a minority in this group according to power and population size, but we're a minority in this country, yet we're at the top of the charts for sickness. We're at the top of the charts for sickness. We're at the top of the charts for single parent households. Let me see. Are we at the top of the charts for crime, leads in, let's see, divorce. Let's just see divorce. Black adults, right? But according to research, they also marry at later ages. 32 for men and 31 for women. Black women are the only group among other races with the number of divorces higher than the marriage rate. That is crazy, right? Black adults lead in divorce. Let's see what else. Let's see what murder. I think we did a research on this before, but I don't want to get too deep into the statistics, right? Because this is the main thing. Hey, these curses would serve as a sign to show who God's chosen people are. And when you look at statistics like that, man, it's kind of hard to just say, oh, well, you can't be the people of the book because the way I break this down is different from the way you understand it. That's all it really comes down to. Or they will say, oh, because science says this, but y'all are this, right? They go to the DNA argument. That's the main argument that I've heard, and it's an argument that I don't subscribe to, right? But it's the main argument that I've heard. DNA. We're talking about what the Most High said, use curses, right? When the Most High said these curses will serve as a sign, this is what we should use to identify who his chosen people are. Even though it's not necessarily a good thing, at the same time, this is a blessing. It's not a blessing. It's not a blessing to be cursed, but it's a blessing that these curses are a fact to show that these are God's chosen people. What's that precept? False genealogies. Let me pull this up real quick before I get off this thing. Something like that. Right. This is 1 Timothy 1:4. It says, neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which minister questions rather than godly edifying, which is in faith. So do, right? Because again, a lot of people want you to prove you're an Israelite by your DNA, your endless genealogy. When a part of the curses was that we would be discontinued from our heritage and scattered abroad. Who's to say that my great grandfather had my great and so on and so forth, like a child with my so on and so forth great grandmother, right? And when they was put on slave ships, or if they wasn't put on slave ships, right? Maybe if they were just separated. How can you find that DNA to substantiate that, right? They take your blood test and they say, well, you could go back to this land. But you got to remember, Israel was scattered into everywhere. And they're not going to tell you emphatically the time that this happened. They're going to say that this probably happened around this time, but that's not an emphatic answer. So it's always a flawed argument when it comes to the DNA thing, because you got to remember, we're scattered everywhere. And I do believe that science shows that a lot of people's DNA can adjust to the region that they're living in, right? Especially if you're living somewhere for over hundreds and thousands of years. But like, again, I'm not going to dig deep into that, but this is 1 Timothy 1:4. Again, it's just like, hey, neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies, right? It's going to pose questions. Because see, if that's the case, half of Israel, a majority of Israel right now is like, shoot, I don't even know if I'm an Israelite, to be honest. Am I? And instead of focusing on keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, you're going to be spending all your time trying to do Ancestry.com, My23andMe, doing all these different researches instead of focusing on pleasing the Lord. And people try to say, well, see, that's your problem. Y'all run from the truth. We're not running from anything. The truth is that the Lord told us to use the curses to identify his chosen people. And when I'm looking up statistics like this, and I'm seeing which people group leads in those categories, it's hard for me to say that those are not curses. And it's hard for me to say that that means that those are not the people of God. Like, it just doesn't add up to me. And they only do it when it's us. It can be anybody but us, man. It can be anybody but us. And I love our people, and it vexes me to see some of our people side with people who think that way. Because it's just like, at the end of the day, man, I know we're a chosen group of people. I don't need to believe that. I know that for a fact. Our women look the best. Our women sing the best. Our women dance the best. Our men are the best athletes. Like, I mean, there would be no entertainment, sports and entertainment in this country without our people. That's just proof of the pudding, right? Without our people, this country wouldn't function. I feel like we got the strongest buying power in this country because we spend so much money on foolishness. And we went over that before in this lesson, as we have many a times. But it's always good to have a refresher to show that, man, look, they have no problem with people being Israelites as long as it isn't the so-called black man. The so-called black man, now we got to tell them, hey, your DNA don't say that, bro. Stop believing that. People, and that's the first argument people run to. They don't go pick up the Bible and see what the Bible says about it. Literally, the Bible is the history book of the Israelites. It's the history book. It has the genealogies in there. It has the accounts that when you go to see, well, it says right here they went into the Babylonian captivity around 586 BCE. You know what I'm saying? That's literally where you can go read that at, in Jeremiah. But people, like I said, people have a simple mind. They say, well, let me go use, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not even going to say it like that. I'm not even going to say it like, oh, let me go use the white man's science. They say, let me go use an argument that has nothing to do with the Bible to prove that y'all aren't the people of the Bible. And it doesn't make sense to me. It could be anybody but us. They want it to be everybody but the so-called black man, the so-called Hispanic man, you know, and that's my point, right? But we was on this thing for 43 minutes. Most High willing, you were edified. Like I mentioned, it's not necessarily a lesson. It's a discussion, you know, about who are God's true chosen people. You know, it's anyone but us. And that's what they want it to be. They don't want you to go to the Bible and they don't want you to go to the Bible and prove them right. And then when you go to the Bible, what people like to do is try to get you to conform to their way of thinking. All you got to do is go read the curses, man. Go see how they apply, right? Go read Leviticus 26. Go read Deuteronomy 28. Go read Isaiah 3. Go read Isaiah 59. You know, go read Jeremiah. Go read, I mean, there's so many places that you can go to substantiate who God's chosen people are. And Deuteronomy 28:46 tells you that those curses are going to serve as a sign and a wonder, right? It ain't no coincidences in life, man. I'm a firm believer in that. Ain't no coincidences. Man's goings are of the Lord. But with that, all praise to the Most High. Shabbat Shalom. Hopefully the lesson was edifying. Kwam Yasharala, man. And man, may y'all have a peaceful Sabbath day of rest. But get at us and Khan. Stay blessed.